It's a blessing to have you here. I've reached 65 myself, and I'm telling this story not just for entertainment, but so we can remember the days of our youth, back when hoofbeats and gunsmoke were the very breath of the West. Before we dive into this gripping tale, tell me, what are you doing as you listen to this? Leave me a note in the comments below. And from the bottom of my heart, I hope you're staying healthy and holding on to the spirit we've always been proud of. Now then, let's begin. I still remember that morning, like it happened just yesterday. In my hand was the paper from the Iron Creek Bank, the paper I'd traded a lifetime of hard labor to get. 100 acres and a rundown old cabin, sold so cheap I thought it was some kind of joke. Sounded like the deal of a lifetime. But folks, you can't even imagine. The road out there was long and dusty. Spring wind so dry it scraped my face raw. I'd braced myself for ruins, weeds crawling up the porch, busted windows, not a soul for miles. But when I crested that ridge and looked down into the valley, I froze. Thin smoke curled from the chimney. A green garden ran tight along the fence. Chickens clucked in the morning sun. And at the gate, 4 horses, not one, 4 tied to the rail. The bank swore this place had been abandoned 10 years. But what I saw told me different. This place was alive. I tightened the reins, heart slow and heavy. As I rode closer, the door swung open, and out they came. Not one, 4 women, each one different, strong, cold, gentle, and one pair of young eyes, sharp as a knife. They lined up shoulder to shoulder, staring straight at me, not afraid, but watchful. "This is Callahan land," the eldest said, voice hard as iron. "Who are you? I'm mighty grateful you're here. If this story stirs up old memories, red dust afternoons, the thunder of hoofbeats in your chest, consider subscribing channel. So we can sit here together, day after day, and I'll tell you another tale from the Old West." "Name's Elias Boone," I said. "Iron Creek Bank sold me this land last week. Papers are legal." The dark-haired woman at the front had to be the eldest, narrowed her eyes. Tall, straight as shouldered, gaze steady as a rifle barrel. "Name's Ruby Callahan," she said. "And this is the land our daddy left us. Ain't been sold in 20 years. The 3 behind her stepped onto the porch. Sadie, red hair, wild as tumbleweed, hand resting on the grip at her hip, temper sharp as summer wind. Clara, pale blonde hair, soft, sad eyes, cradling a pup in her arms. The gentle one. And June, youngest, maybe 17, long brown braids slung to one side, eyes sharp enough to see straight through a man's soul. "Bank told me this place been empty 10 years. I said slow. "But looking around, they lied. To me, and to you." Sadie scoffed, her voice sharp as a whip. "You think we planted that garden, fixed that roof, just to trick you?" Ruby raised a hand to quiet her. "You got papers?" I slipped the leather pouch from my belt, pulled out the bank deed, held it open. Wind rattled the edge of the page. Ruby glanced at it, then reached into her skirt pocket and pulled out another. Older paper, yellowed with age, edges frayed, seal faded near to nothing. "This is the original," Ruby said, voice like a blade. "Our daddy was granted this land in 1850. 1. Yours says what date?" 3 days ago, I muttered, throat dry as dust. Sadie barked a laugh, joyless, sharp. "Hear that, Ruby? 3 days ago, and they call us the squatters." I stayed quiet. Truth was plain. Something was dead wrong. Either the bank lied to me, or lied to them, or lied to us all. June, the youngest, spoke up soft but clear. "Mr. Boone, that bank's cheated plenty folks. Sold this land 5-6 times over. Most walked away, scared of trouble. But we're not leaving." The wind swept the prairie, making the porch window chimes ring hollow. And right then, I knew I'd stumbled into something bigger than a piece of dirt. And for the first time in years, I felt like I'd found something worth fighting for. Ruby stayed quiet a long moment, like she was weighing how much to trust me. Finally, she folded the old deed and slipped it back into her dress pocket. "If you really didn't know," she said, "then you'd best listen close. This goes deeper than you think." We went inside. The floorboards creaked under our boots. The place smelled of old pine and hearth ash. On the long dining table, 4 chipped porcelain cups sat neatly in a row, no doubt about it. They lived here. This wasn't a stopover. This was home. Clara handed me a glass of well water. Her voice was soft, but shook a little when she spoke. Iron Creek Bank, she said, has been trying to steal this land since the day our father died. They claimed back taxes, forged papers, even sent men to scare us off. Sadie cut in, drumming her fingers on the table, irritated. 3 months ago, some bankman came saying we had to leave, said the land was sold. We showed him the original deed. He left. But 2 weeks later, a family from Kansas showed up, with papers just like yours. June rested her chin in her hand, eyes sharp and burning like she was fitting puzzle pieces together. They've been doing it over and over, selling the same land to different folks. The ones who give up, they keep the money. The ones who fight back, they get shut up. I sat there, each word landing like a stone dropped in a deep well. Years on the road had taught me to trust little, but what they were saying lined up clean with the gut feeling I had when I saw that chimney smoke this morning. The bank had played both sides. Any proof? I asked. June reached under the table and pulled out a bundle of papers tied with rope. Found these after a windstorm in town. Same signature on all of them, dates don't match. Same judge, same sheriff's seal. Look for yourself. I flipped through the stack. Ink still fresh, but the paper had been aged by hand. Sloppy work good enough to fool a city man, but not a drifter like me. Ruby locked eyes with me. You pay for this land with clean money? Every damn dollar was sweat, I said. She gave a small nod. Then you've been wronged, same as us. Wind howled louder outside. From the distance came hoofbeats fast, hard, and nothing friendly about them. Sadie moved to the window in a flash. They're coming, she whispered. The bank knows you're here. The hoofbeats grew louder, steady as a funeral drum. I stepped out onto the porch, hand falling to my gun the way an old habit does. Evening sun cut across the prairie, lighting the dust in the air, what folks out west call the prettiest hour for a gun to go off. Ruby stood beside me, eyes unblinking. Sadie quietly swung the window open and rested an old Winchester on the sill. Clara pulled June close, but I caught the glint of steel in June's hand. The girl still gripped a dagger tight, her young eyes colder and sharper than they ought to be. A lone rider appeared down the road. Black horse, dust rising behind him. I knew him. Jed Collins. Hired gun for Iron Creek Bank. Famous in these parts for a smile colder than mountain wind. He didn't bother dismounting when he reached the gate. Ruby Callahan, his voice carried across the yard. Time's up. $200 in back taxes. Pay by sundown, or this land belongs to the bank. Ruby stepped onto the porch, face calm as stone. We don't owe a dime, she said. This land's been Callahan ground for 20 years. Our daddy's got the papers to prove it. Jed sneered. Bank says different. And look here, his eyes cut to me. Your new friend's got legal papers too. I clenched the deed in my fist, voice rough but firm. If this land's theirs, the bank swindled me. If it's mine, they swindled them. Either way, the thieves are you. A flicker of anger crossed Jed's eyes. He leaned low in the saddle, voice low but sharp as a knife. By the time the sun sets, we'll see who's still alive to claim it. He wheeled his horse and rode back toward town. But we knew me and the four sisters both that wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Ruby exhaled slow, then turned to me. You can walk away right now, she said. This ain't your fight. I looked at the four women in that cabin, strong, scared, but unbroken. And I realized, after years drifting for a place to call home, maybe I'd just found it right here, in the middle of the storm. I stay, I said. If they want to fight, we give 'em one. But we'll do it, our way. After Jed rode off, the house fell silent. His hoofbeats faded into the distance. But what he left behind sat heavy in our chests. I looked at the four sisters, each different, but every one of them knew what came next. Fight, or lose everything. Ruby stood by the window, clutching her father's old map tight. They won't wait till sundown, she said quietly. When they come back, they'll bring the whole damn town. Sadie slammed her fist on the table, the crack echoing through the room. We're done hidin', she growled. Years of ducking behind trees, behind their filthy laws. I'd rather die on my own porch than keep running. Clara trembled, but there was steel in her eyes. If we've got proof, if someone's willing to stand up and speak it, maybe we've got a chance. No. June, the youngest, laid a bundle of papers on the table, copies she'd stolen from the bank's office on a trip to town. "I've heard him brag about this for months," she said, voice low, older than her years. "They sold our land over and over. Judge's name, sheriff's seal, bribes and dates, all of it. I studied those papers, signatures, overlapping seals, crooked dates, every piece we needed to expose the truth. The only way," I said, "is to drag this out in the open, right in front of the whole town. They gotta see it with their own eyes." Ruby stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "You don't owe us anything, Elias. And yet, I owe myself." I cut her off. "I've spent my whole life running from trouble. This time, I'm standing my ground." That evening, 5 horses rode out from Callahan Ranch. I led, Ruby to my right, Sadie to my left, Clara and June close behind. The sky was washed gold with the dying sun, wind carrying the scent of dust and cold iron, the smell of an inevitable reckoning. When we crested the hill overlooking Iron Creek, my gut went heavy. The main street lay empty. Shops shuttered early. And outside the bank, 6 strange horses tied in a neat line. Men stood watch, hands never far from their guns. Ruby whispered, "They're waiting on us." I pulled my reins, slow. "Good. Saves us the trouble of looking." We rode down that hill, dust rising behind us. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I was riding into and who I was riding for. We rode down the red dust slope straight onto Iron Creek's main street. The evening wind whipped Ruby's hair, and the hoofbeats of our horses pounded like war drums. In front of the bank, 6 hired guns stood spread out, hands resting easy on their pistols, the kind of easy that turns to gunfire with the slightest breeze. Sheriff Morrison stepped out from the bank's shaded porch. His badge gleamed in the dying light, but his eyes were cold, rusted steel. Beside him stood Jonathan Hale, a gray-suited man from back east, the kind that only shows up when dirty money's involved. "Callahan," Morrison said, voice low and even. "Time to settle this mess." Ruby nudged her horse forward half a step, holding high her father's map and the real deed. "This land belongs to my family," she said. "We've got proof." "Ugh," Hale sneered. "Moldy papers won't save you, girl. The law's on our side." Sadie barked back, voice sharp as a whip. "Your kind of law? The kind bought and paid for in blood money?" The first shot rang out before I could count to 3. A bullet slammed into the dirt at my horse's hooves, a warning. I didn't wait for a second. My Colt cleared leather, muzzle flashing in the fading sun. Main Street erupted in gunfire. Ruby leapt from her horse, dragging Clara behind a water trough. Sadie returned fire from the blacksmith's porch, her aim so dead-on it drove the hired guns scrambling for cover. June crawled low through the dust, clutching the bundle of papers, the only thing that could save us all. Sheriff Morrison barked orders, but the roar of gunfire swallowed his voice. I dropped one man with a shot, then swung to cover June as she bolted toward the bank's doors. Everything happened in heartbeats, dust and smoke, the scream of horses, the shouts of dying men blending into chaos. Then suddenly June burst through the bank doors, holding the ledger high. "Your names are all in here," she cried, voice cutting through the noise. "The judge, the sheriff, Hale, all of you, were paid to steal this land." From behind shuttered windows, the townsfolk began spilling into the street. They saw the papers. They saw the truth. Morrison snarled, whipping his gun toward June. I didn't think. I just pulled the trigger. The shot cracked loud and final. Morrison fell backward, badge clattering onto the bank steps. And in that moment, the street went dead quiet, save for the wind moaning through the swinging signs above. When Morrison hit the ground, the gunfire stopped like somebody had snapped the air in half. All that remained was the ragged breathing of horses, the rattle of loose bullets on wood, and the pounding of my old heart in my chest. Hale stood frozen on the bank steps, eyes locked on the bribe ledger June held high. Townsfolk began spilling into the street, faces I'd only glimpsed behind curtains now surging toward us. And then, the whispers turned into angry shouts. An old blacksmith hurled his hammer to the dirt. "They've been stealing our land for years. Lie!" Another voice bellowed. "Hang 'em." Hale tried to bolt, but Sadie jammed her Winchester into his back. "One more step and I shoot your leg clean out," she said, voice cold as iron. Ruby stood beside her, eyes fixed on the mob. She knew, same as I did, frontier justice rarely waited for a judge. Clara stepped forward, Voice calm yet ringing clear. No need for a hanging. Put the proof on the table. Send it to the territorial court. Let real law pass judgment. May A strange thing happened. The crowd quieted. Angry as they were, they listened. Because they knew the Callahan women hadn't risked their lives just to swap one street killing for another. They'd fought to reclaim fairness. That day, we handed every document to the federal marshals who'd just ridden in. News of the Iron Creek scandal spread across 3 counties. The judge, the sheriff, and every man behind them was hauled off in chains. The Callahan land was restored. I got back the money I'd spent, but more important, I got back something I thought I'd lost for good. The belief that justice, though late, can still arrive. Weeks later, we stood together on that same porch. The porch where I once held up a deed, 4 cold eyes staring me down. Now it was the place where laughter echoed every evening. Ruby stayed strong as the day I met her, but there was softness in her eyes now. Sadie was still fiery, but her laughter carried farther. Clara tended the garden. June learned to shoot at my side. And for the first time in many years, I felt like I belonged to a family. It's been many years since Gunsmoke rose over Iron Creek. My hair's gone near white now, hands trembling every time I pour coffee. But that afternoon stays sharp in my mind, sharp as a fresh-honed blade. The land I bought with my last dollar, the one I thought might buy me a little peace in my twilight years, gave me more than that. It gave me a family. Red Creek ain't the same anymore. The old bank's just a storage shed now. Its rusted sign still hangs crooked, a reminder of the days when men bought and sold land and souls with forged papers and dirty gold. Folks in town don't avert their eyes anymore. They've learned justice don't just live in a courtroom, it lives in the hands of those willing to stand up. And the Callahan Ranch? It still stands. The porch has been rebuilt, the chicken coop's bigger, the garden green every spring. Ruby, Sadie, Clara, and June, the 4 girls I met that day, each went their own way. But they still call this place home. Come harvest time, they all return, and the laughter carries clear across the fields. I still remember the first time I saw 'em. 4 cold eyes on that wooden porch, staring at me like I was the enemy. Now, those same eyes are the reason I stayed, the reason I stopped wandering for a home somewhere else. And if you're listening to this tale, if it stirs up memories of the Wild West of a time when men lived and died for honor, and sometimes found family where they least expected, remember this. Never pass up the chance to stand on the side of what's right, no matter the cost, because sometimes one choice on a dusty afternoon can change the rest of your life. I'm mighty grateful you stayed with me to the end. If this story brought back even a flicker of your own youth, that's the greatest honor I could ask for. Go on and subscribe, my friends. So tomorrow we can sit together again, and I'll tell you another tale from the Old West.